The dinner table was silent in the worst possible way. Jasmine sat straight in her chair, her natural hair pinned perfectly, her burgundy blazer crisp, her posture carrying the kind of confidence that only a woman who had fought for every single thing she owned could carry. She had walked into that restaurant ready. She had told herself she was ready. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared her for the look Nam Ji-hwan's mother gave her the moment she walked through that door. It was not anger. Anger she could handle. It was something colder than that. It was dismissal. The kind of look that said, "You do not belong here. You were never supposed to be here, and I will not pretend otherwise." Mrs. Park Soo-yeon sat across the table, like a woman who had already made her decision before the appetizers arrived. Her silver hair styled with precision, and her eyes never warmed. Not once. Not when Nam Ji-hwan introduced Jasmine. Not when Jasmine smiled and extended her hand. Not when she spoke in her clear, composed voice and said it was a pleasure to meet her. Mrs. Park looked at that extended hand for 3 full seconds before she picked up her water glass. Nam Ji-hwan's younger sister, Seo Yuna, let out a quiet breath from beside Jasmine and quickly reached over to squeeze her arm as if to say, "I am so sorry. I tried to warn you." Jasmine did not flinch. She lowered her hand slowly, reached for her own glass, and took a calm sip of water. Ji-hwan's jaw tightened. He looked at his mother with eyes that were trying to stay composed, but were losing the battle fast. He had been an aerospace engineer for 11 years. He had solved problems that most people could not even understand. But sitting at this table right now, he felt completely powerless. "Mom," he said quietly in Korean, "please." His mother responded in Korean, not bothering to translate, not bothering to care that Jasmine was sitting right there. Her voice was low and cutting, and even though Jasmine did not understand every word, the tone was universal. She had heard that tone before. She had grown up in spaces that used that exact tone to remind her she was an outsider. Yuna leaned slightly toward Jasmine and whispered, "She is asking him why he brought you here. She says she thought he understood what she expected." Jasmine nodded once. Slowly, Ji-hwan set down his fork. "Jasmine is important to me. That is why I brought her here. I wanted you to meet her properly." His mother looked at Jasmine then, really looked at her, and she said, in English this time, deliberately, so Jasmine would understand every single syllable, "She is not what I had in mind for you. This is not something I will support." The table went quiet enough to hear the ambient noise of the restaurant around them. Yuna's eyes went wide. Ji-hwan went very, very still. And Jasmine, senior civil engineer at one of the most competitive firms in Atlanta. A woman who had clawed her way through rooms that did not want to welcome her. A woman who had been underestimated her entire career and proven every single person wrong, sat with her shoulders straight and said calmly, "I appreciate your honesty, Mrs. Park." She folded her napkin. She placed it on the table. She pushed her chair back with grace. She looked at Ji-hwan, and her voice did not crack, not even slightly. "I'm going to give you time with your family." She picked up her clutch. "It was nice meeting you, Yuna." She did not look at Mrs. Park again. She did not need to. She walked out of that restaurant with her head high and her heels steady on the floor, and she did not let herself fall apart until she was sitting in her car in the parking garage 3 levels down, where no one could see her. She gripped the steering wheel. She breathed in through her nose, out through her mouth. She was not going to cry. She refused to cry. But her hands were shaking, and the feeling in her chest was the exact kind of hurt that does not announce itself loudly. It sits quietly. It presses against your ribs from the inside. Her phone buzzed on the seat beside her. Ji-hwan. She stared at his name on the screen for a long time. Then she answered. His voice came through tight and rough. "Jasmine, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I did not think she would do that. I should have—" "Ji-hwan." Her voice was steady. She had trained it to be. "I need you to tell me something honestly." "Anything? Is this the life you're choosing? Because I need to know right now." Silence on his end. Not the silence of someone who did not have an answer. The silence of someone who was terrified of the answer they had. I love you, he said finally. That is not what I asked you. She heard him exhale. She heard the pain in it. I know, he said quietly. She ended the call. She started her car. And she drove home through the Atlanta night with that steady ache sitting right in the center of her chest, reminding her that loving someone deeply does not automatically make things simple. Nam Ji-hwan stood in the restaurant parking lot in the cold and felt like he had failed everyone at the same time. Inside, his mother was still sitting at the table. His sister had followed him out and was standing 3 feet away, arms crossed, looking at him with the kind of expression that only a younger sibling who knows you are making a mess of your life can give you. You knew this would happen, Yuna said. I thought if she met her. She did not want to meet her, Ji-hwan. She made up her mind before we even sat down. He ran his hand through his hair. He did this when he was frustrated. Yuna had watched him do it since they were children. Jasmine is incredible, he said. I know that. Yuna's voice softened. I could see that in 5 minutes. She walked in there knowing exactly who she was, and she sat at that table with Mom being completely awful to her, and she held herself together better than most people I have ever seen. She paused. That woman is not weak, Ji-hwan, but she is not going to keep standing in front of someone who refuses to see her. She has too much self-respect for that. Ji-hwan turned away and looked at the night sky. Mom has to come around, he said. Maybe, Yuna said, but Jasmine should not have to wait around on maybe. He knew Yuna was right. He hated that she was right. He went back inside and sat across from his mother. And the conversation that followed was the kind that scrapes something out of you and leaves you hollow. His mother spoke about family expectations, about what people would say, about the life she had imagined for him. She spoke about it calmly, like it was simply logic, like it had nothing to do with something uglier underneath. Ji-hwan listened to all of it, and then he said something he had never said to his mother in his entire life. I am not choosing the life you imagined for me. I am choosing my own. His mother looked at him like he had become a stranger. He left the restaurant before the food ever came. 3 weeks passed. Jasmine threw herself into work with the kind of focus that leaves no room for anything else. She had a bridge expansion project in the final design phase, and she spent 14-hour days at her firm going over structural load calculations and site reports and contractor meetings. Her team knew better than to ask her what was wrong. She was performing at her highest level, which, to the people who knew Jasmine, meant she was also in pain. Her best friend and project coordinator, Denise, brought her coffee one Tuesday morning and sat on the corner of her desk. You have not mentioned his name in 3 weeks, Denise said. I have a lot of work. You always have a lot of work. You have not mentioned his name. Jasmine clicked through her design software without looking up. We are on pause. Pause or over? Jasmine did not answer. She did not know the answer, and she was not ready to look at that truth directly. Ji-hwan had called every day for the first week. She had answered twice. He had texted every day since. She had replied in short, careful sentences. She was not running from him. She was not a woman who ran. But she was also not going to pretend that what happened at that dinner did not reveal something very real about the situation she was stepping into. She had been here before. Not with him. With the world. She had walked into rooms that quietly communicated she was not supposed to be there, and she had stayed, and she had proven herself, and eventually she had earned a different kind of treatment. But she had made a private promise to herself a long time ago that she would not do that in her personal life. In her career, she would fight. In her love life, she wanted to be chosen without a battle. And yet, she thought about Ji-hwan every single morning when she woke up. The way he always had the news pulled up on his tablet before she was even awake. The way he argued with her about structural engineering versus aerospace engineering with this passionate, slightly ridiculous intensity that made her laugh until her sides hurt. The way he looked at her. Not like something he had found, like something he had recognized. That was the thing about him. He saw her. Not the resume. Not the composure. Her. And she missed him in the kind of quiet way that does not shout but never leaves. On the 22nd day, he showed up at her office building. She came out of a meeting at 6:30 in the evening to find him standing in the lobby, still in his work clothes, with absolutely nothing in his hands. No flowers, no rehearsed speech. Just him. He looked like he had not been sleeping. His eyes found her immediately and stayed there. Jasmine stopped walking. Her assistant, who had seen everything, pretended very intently to look at her phone. Ji-hwan crossed the lobby toward her, and when he was close enough that only she could hear him, he said, "I told my mother that if she cannot respect the woman I love, then she is going to miss every important moment of my life from this point forward. I told her that is a choice I am giving her, and the consequences of that choice are hers to carry." Jasmine studied his face. She was looking for hesitation, for the particular way people look when they have said something they want to take back later. She found none. "How did she respond?" Jasmine asked. "She did not speak to me for 5 days. And now?" "She is still angry." He held her gaze. "I'm still here." Jasmine was quiet for a long moment. "Ji-hwan, I need you to understand something." She kept her voice low. "I am not going to be someone who is tolerated. I am not going to spend holidays sitting at a table where I am made to feel invisible. I am not built for that, and I will not do it. That is not negotiable." "I know. I mean it. I know you mean it. That is one of the reasons I am standing in your lobby after 5 days of my mother refusing to look at me." He exhaled slowly. "Jasmine, I am not asking you to fight for a place at a table. I am asking you to let me fight for you. That is different." She looked at him. Outside the glass lobby doors, Atlanta moved in its usual way, fast and bright and indifferent to two people standing in a lobby, having a moment that neither of them could quite look away from. "Take me to dinner," she said finally. "Not your mother's dinner, our dinner." Something in his face changed, like something that had been held under pressure finally had room to breathe. "Yes," he said. "Absolutely, yes." 3 months later, Jasmine was sitting on the counter in Ji-hwan's kitchen on a Saturday morning, arguing about whether cast-iron cookware was superior to stainless steel, when his phone rang and the name on the screen read Iyama. The argument stopped immediately. Ji-hwan looked at the phone, then at Jasmine. She slid off the counter. "Answer it," he answered. His mother's voice came through in Korean, and Jasmine moved to the window with her coffee and gave him space. She listened to the rhythm of the conversation, without understanding most of the words. She had started taking Korean language lessons 6 weeks ago, not because she felt she had to, because language, in her experience, was how you understood people from the inside, and she wanted to understand Ji-hwan's world, even if his mother did not want her in it. The call lasted 11 minutes. When he hung up, he sat at the kitchen island for a moment, without speaking. Jasmine came back and sat across from him. "What happened?" "She wants to meet you again." Jasmine went still. "She asked me to ask you if you would come to the house for lunch." He looked up. "You do not have to. I want to be clear about that. You do not owe her anything." Jasmine set her coffee down. "What changed?" Ji-hwan was quiet for a moment. "Yuna talked to her. For a long time, apparently. And my mother also." He paused. "She did some research." Jasmine raised an eyebrow. "Your project, the bridge expansion. It was featured in that engineering publication last month. She read it." He looked almost embarrassed. "She looked you up." Jasmine let out a breath that was almost a laugh. "Almost." "She needed to verify my credentials before she would consider respecting me as a human being." Ji-hwan did not defend it. He simply said, I know how that sounds." It sounded exactly like what it was. And Jasmine sat with it. She turned it over the way she turned over complex structural problems, looking at it from every angle. Thinking about what she actually wanted here, not what she was supposed to want, not what pride demanded, not what fear was suggesting. She wanted Ji-hwan. She had known that for a long time, and she was done pretending otherwise. And Ji-hwan carried his family with him, the way most people carry their families, imperfectly, painfully, with love tangled up in complication. His mother was not a monster. She was a woman who had built a wall and called it protection, and walls like that do not come down all at once, but they can come down. I will go, Jasmine said. Ji-hwan looked at her with the particular expression he saved for moments when she genuinely surprised him. Jasmine, I am not going for your mother, she said clearly. I'm going for us, because I am not a woman who backs away from uncomfortable things. And because I think it matters. She picked up her coffee again. But if she is cold to me, I am leaving, politely, and I am not going back. Understood. And you are making the cast iron argument over for me before we go anywhere because you still have not admitted that I'm right. He actually smiled then. The real one. The one that reached his eyes. And the morning felt lighter in a way that nothing complicated could completely take away. The Park family home was a quiet, well-kept house in a suburb north of Atlanta. Jasmine wore a simple green wrap dress and carried the kind of posture she always carried, the kind that was not arrogance, just absolute certainty about who she was. Yuna opened the door before they even rang the bell. She grabbed Jasmine's hand with both of hers. You came. I am so glad you came. Please come in. I made the appetizers. Mom made the main course. I told her specifically what you cannot eat. I asked Ji-hwan. I hope that is okay. Yuna, Jasmine said gently, smiling. Breathe. Yuna laughed, nervous and warm. I am breathing. I am breathing. She stepped aside to let them in. The house smelled like sesame and garlic, and something slow-cooked. The kind of smell that, in any culture, in any home, said that someone had spent hours preparing for your arrival. Jasmine noted that. Mrs. Park came out of the kitchen. She was wearing a simpler outfit than the restaurant, a soft gray top, and she looked like she had wrestled with herself before choosing it. She stood in the hallway and looked at Jasmine with eyes that were still guarded, but this time there was something else underneath. Not warmth exactly, but something closer to it than before. Something that was trying. Jasmine met her eyes. She did not smile first. She waited. Mrs. Park said carefully, in English, that she had clearly practiced. Thank you for coming. Jasmine said, Thank you for inviting me. Both of them understood there was an entire conversation packed into those two sentences. Yuna clapped her hands and said, Okay, lunch, very loudly, and ushered everyone toward the dining room. The meal was better than the restaurant, not just the food, the air. It was still stiff in places, still careful, like a room full of people trying to move around fragile things without breaking anything. But it was better. Yuna carried most of the conversation with cheerful determination, asking Jasmine about her bridge project, about how she got into civil engineering, about Atlanta. Jasmine answered naturally, without performing, without trying to impress anyone. She spoke about her work the way she always did, with a quiet passion that was impossible to fake. Mrs. Park listened more than she spoke. She watched Jasmine the way an engineer watches a structure, looking for weaknesses, looking for what holds. Halfway through the meal, she asked, in her careful English, How long you been in this field? Engineering? 11 years, Jasmine said. I started right after graduate school. Mrs. Park absorbed that. You like it? I love it, Jasmine said simply. I build things that hold people up. That feels important. Something moved across Mrs. Park's face. Quick, but Jasmine caught it. Yuna caught it too. She glanced at Ji-hwan under her lashes, and he was watching his mother with the careful attention of someone who has been waiting a long time for a door to open. After lunch, Yuna found a reason to bring Ji-hwan into the kitchen and leave Jasmine and Mrs. Park alone in the dining room. It was not subtle. Mrs. Park saw through it immediately. A ghost of something, maybe amusement, passed across her face. The two women sat across from each other. The silence stretched. Then Mrs. Park said slowly, I was not kind to you. First time. Jasmine looked at her directly. No, you were not. Mrs. Park did not flinch from that. She nodded once, like she respected the honesty. I had a picture in my mind, for Ji-hwan, for what his life would look like. She pressed her lips together. I built picture for a long time. I understand that, Jasmine said. And she did. She understood building a picture of what your life should look like, and then having reality sit down across from it and refuse to look away. My son, Mrs. Park said, and her voice changed just slightly when she said those words, became something softer and more unguarded. He is not easy to know. He is very... She searched for the word. Interior. Yes, Jasmine said softly. I know. Mrs. Park looked at her. You know him. I am learning him, Jasmine said. I intend to keep learning him. Something in the older woman's expression shifted. The wall did not fall, but a door in it opened slightly. Just slightly. Enough for light. He is happy, Mrs. Park said quietly. I see it. Even when I did not want to see it. I see it. Jasmine said nothing. She let that sit there. Mrs. Park looked down at her hands on the table. I am not... She seemed to struggle. I am not easy woman. Ji Huan will tell you this. I am not an easy woman either, Jasmine said. Mrs. Park looked up, and Jasmine held her gaze steady and said, But I am loyal, and I am honest, and I love your son in a way that I think you would recognize if you let yourself look at it without the picture in your head getting in the way. The dining room was very quiet. Mrs. Park sat with that for a long moment. The lines of her face were tight, with something she did not have English words for. Then she said, very quietly, He told me if I cannot accept you, I will miss everything. Yes, Jasmine said. I know he said that. He means it. He means everything he says, Jasmine said. That is one of the things I love most about him. Mrs. Park exhaled slowly. It was the sound of something being set down that had been held too long. She did not apologize exactly. She was not there yet, and Jasmine did not need her to be there yet. What she did was look at Jasmine and say, I would like to try again, differently. Jasmine considered that. She thought about what it had cost this woman, in the architecture of who she was, to say those words. Then we try again, Jasmine said. Differently. Mrs. Park nodded. Small, but real. Yuna chose that exact moment to come back from the kitchen, carrying dessert with Ji Huan right behind her, and one look at the two women sitting across from each other. Something released instead of tense, made Yuna place the dessert on the table and say absolutely nothing, which was, for Yuna, remarkable. Ji Huan sat down beside Jasmine. His hand found hers under the table. She let it. On the drive home, the city moved past the windows, and Ji Huan drove, and Jasmine sat in the passenger seat, feeling the particular exhaustion of a day that had required her to be bigger than the situation, which was a kind of exhaustion she knew very well and had learned to respect. He said, Are you okay? Yes, she said, and she meant it. What did you two talk about when Yuna dragged me into the kitchen? She told me she sees you are happy, Jasmine said. And I told her I am loyal and honest and that I love you. He was quiet for a moment. Then, You told her you love me. I did. He merged onto the highway, both hands on the wheel, and she watched his profile and the way the city lights moved over his face. I have never brought anyone home before, he said. My mother had expectations, but I never brought anyone home because I never wanted to. I never felt like it mattered enough to navigate all of that. He glanced at her briefly. You are the first person who has ever made me feel like navigating all of that was worth it. Jasmine looked out at the highway ahead of them, at the long, straight road with its lights and lanes and all the miles still to go. I know, she said quietly. I love you, he said. I want to be clear about that every time I have the opportunity because I think I was too slow to be clear about it before, and I do not want to repeat that particular mistake. She turned to look at him. You are clear. He reached over without taking his eyes off the road and found her hand again. She did not pull away. 6 weeks later, Mrs. Park showed up at Jasmine's firm. Jasmine's assistant came to her office door, looking stunned and slightly uncertain. There is a Korean woman in the lobby asking for you. She says she is Ji Huan's mother. She does not have an appointment. Jasmine set down her pen. She took a breath. Send her up. Mrs. Park walked into her office and stood in the middle of it and looked around, at the framed structural drawings on the wall, at the scale models on the shelf, at the stacks of technical reports, and the large monitor showing a 3D design render, and something moved across her face that was close to awe. "This is your work?" she asked. "This is my work," Jasmine said. Mrs. Park stood straighter. "It is impressive." "Thank you." The older woman moved to the window that looked out over the Atlanta skyline and stood there for a moment. Then she turned around and she looked at Jasmine, and she said something that clearly had not been easy to carry here. "I owe you an apology." Her English was slower, more careful. "The restaurant, She paused. "I was wrong. How I treated you was wrong." She held Jasmine's gaze and did not look away. "You deserved better from me." From the beginning, Jasmine stood behind her desk and felt the weight of those words in a way she had not expected. She had been prepared for a lot of things. She had not fully prepared for this. "I appreciate that," she said, and her voice was steady but quiet. "Ji-hwan," Mrs. Park said, "he does not love carefully. He is not a careful man with his heart. When he loves something, he puts everything in that direction. He has not looked at anyone the way he looks at you. I see it, and I have been seeing it, and I was pretending not to." She straightened. "I am done pretending." "I'm going to take care of him," Jasmine said, "not because I need to prove anything, because he matters to me, and I do not take what matters to me lightly." Mrs. Park studied her face for a long moment. Then she said, "I know. That is why I am here." She reached into the bag she was carrying and removed a small wrapped package and held it out. Jasmine took it carefully. Inside was a small ceramic figure, delicate, traditional Korean craftsmanship, clearly old. "It belonged to my mother," Mrs. Park said. "I give things that matter to people who matter." She looked at Jasmine. "You matter to my son, so." Jasmine held the small figure gently. She thought about every room she had walked into, knowing she was not supposed to be there. Every version of this woman she had faced across tables and boardrooms and difficult silences. Every time she had held herself together and stayed composed and refused to be made small. She thought about all of that, and she looked at Mrs. Park, and she said simply, "Thank you." Mrs. Park nodded once. Then she looked around the office one more time, took in the scale models and the drawings and the work of a woman who built things that held people up, and she said quietly, almost to herself, "Good." She left the office. Jasmine stood at the window, holding the ceramic figure, and looking out at Atlanta and feeling something she had not let herself feel in a very long time, which was simply this. She was exactly where she was supposed to be. Ji-hwan found out about the visit 3 hours later when Jasmine sent him a photograph of the ceramic figure sitting on her desk beside her monitor. He called her immediately. She answered on the second ring. "She gave you grandmother's figure," he said. "She did." He was quiet for a long moment, and she could hear him breathing on the other end, and she knew what that silence meant. "Ji-hwan." "I am here," he said. His voice was rough. "Are you going to cry?" A pause. "No." "You are definitely crying." "I am an aerospace engineer. I do not cry." He let out a breath. "She has never given that to anyone. I did not even know she would ever give that to anyone." "Well," Jasmine said. "She did." Another silence. Warmer than any silence between them had ever been before. "Jasmine." "Yes." "I need to ask you something important." She straightened slightly. She said, "Okay." He said, "Would you let me take you somewhere this weekend? Just us. Somewhere I picked because it reminded me of something you said in our third conversation, about how you had never seen the water at night from above." She went still. She remembered that conversation. She had mentioned it in passing, the way you mention a small quiet wish you have carried a long time, not expecting anyone to hold on to it. "You remembered that," she said. "I remember everything you say," he said simply. "I was an engineer before anything else. We document what matters." She closed her eyes for just one moment. Then she said, "Yes. Take me there." They stood on a glass walkway above a harbor 2 states away that weekend, at night, with the water spread out below them and the lights of the city reflected in it, turning the dark surface into something that looked like a sky facing downward, stars beneath their feet. Jasmine stood with her hands on the railing and looked down and felt the particular feeling of being exactly somewhere she had wished to be for a very long time. Ji Huan stood beside her, close enough that his shoulder was against hers, and neither of them spoke for a while, because some moments do not need words immediately. Then she said, "How did you even find this place?" "I'm an engineer," he said. "I am very good at research." She laughed. The sound went out over the dark water. He turned toward her. The harbor light was doing something to the planes of his face that made him look like the truest version of himself. "I want to keep showing you things," he said quietly. "I want to keep finding things that match the small wishes you mention without realizing you're mentioning them. I want to keep doing that for a very long time." She looked at him. She did not make him wait. "Then keep doing it," she said. He took the small ceramic figure from his jacket pocket, the one his grandmother had made. He placed it gently in her palm. "My mother gave you this because in our family it means someone has a permanent place," he said. "I want to make sure you understand what that means." Jasmine looked down at their hands, his wrapped around hers, around the small figure that had traveled from one woman's hands to another. "I understand what it means," she said. "Good." He did not look away from her face. "Because I would very much like for you to keep it, permanently." The water moved below them. The city breathed around them. And Jasmine, who had walked through fire and held herself together when everything tried to shake her loose, who had sat at tables where she was not wanted and stood in rooms that tried to make her feel invisible, who had refused every single time to be made small, stood above a harbor full of reflected stars, and felt, in the most complete and settled way, loved. "Yes," she said. He exhaled slowly, like he had been holding that breath for months. "Now stop being dramatic and take me to dinner." He actually laughed, real and full, and they walked out of the harbor night together, shoulder to shoulder, into a life that no one had built for them but the two of them, which was exactly what made it theirs. And if you are watching this and wondering whether a love like this, the kind that makes you walk back into rooms that tried to reject you, not because you are desperate, but because you know what you deserve, and you are willing to stand in that truth until the world catches up, whether a love like that is real. It is. It costs something, but it gives back more than it takes. Would you have walked back into that house the way Jasmine did? Or would you have decided that love, no matter how real, is not worth sitting across from someone who has to be convinced you deserve to exist in their world? Let me know below. I want to know exactly where you stand. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to see themselves in a woman who never let anyone make her feel small. Like this video, subscribe so you never miss a story. Thank you for stay till the end.